organization with the size and this kind of scale and scope of the budget results in very limited amount of financial planning support available that we can make available to the individual parks to do any kind of in-depth analysis of their budgets over time. And that's the intent here, to bring on resources that will allow us to do that. It is expected that that would result in longer-term savings to the organization as a result. The fire department is looking for some additional half-time equivalent for administrative support. Council is certainly aware of the restructuring that's been undertaken in the fire services. There is, in addition to administrative support of that restructuring, quite a lengthy list of increasing requirements in terms of information and protection of privacy and reporting of information that this position will support. Cedar Hill Recreation Center, there's a request for a building service worker. It's really is an outcome of the establishment of the Arts Center in 2011. There were no additional hours added to this facility for maintenance and support of program activities. It's been done off of the corners of desks, as we might describe, and there's certainly a requirement for that. I won't go into additional detail on the specific general resource requests, although there are clearly a number. Some have already been, there's some questions from Dr. Murdoch previously, and staff are certainly available to answer any specific questions. I do point out the webcasting, hosting, and maintenance. And I would apologize to council. We didn't revamp the wording of this as we move forward with the revised proposal to council on the webcasting. The requirement is still there. The use of those funds in supporting webcasting is slightly different than the wording that's included here. But as you're well aware, the system multi-camera system requires the technical support for switching between views from the webcast and the indexing portion of making the webcast available. Beyond that, I think I'll leave it to council to ask any questions. I guess before I do that, there is a significant one, and that's under general legal services, and it's worth pointing out. It's always a bit of a hot topic. Council is certainly aware of the change that occurred in this percentage from 2010, where we went away from the in-house solicitor model as part of a reorganization. At that time, there was a significant reduction in the budgets for legal services. Since that time, there's been a kind of continuous trend of upward costs. And the resource request that is brought before you now is to increase it almost still not to the level that existed in 2010, but to a level that's really rather more representative of the level of support that's provided in the organization. I would point out that in my experience coming from another organization and working with other organizations, the budget for general legal services at this percentage I saw that was remarkably low in comparison to what I've seen elsewhere, and I think that is really represented in the request. So beyond that, certainly staff are available to answer any questions, and we have provided a recommendation on page 6 of the staff report.
Member of Council would like to move the recommendation so we can have discussion.
I'll move the recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Councilor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hinted at it earlier, so I should live up to the expectation that I was going to ask a question about the servers. My only additional question to what I'd asked earlier is just if the off-site storage space comes about as a result of the procurement process. I guess my question is just how do we determine how we're going to find that space that we're going to be paying $57,000 a year to take advantage of?
Through the mayor to Councilor Murdoch, we will do an RFT type process. There are
numbers of organizations that provide that throughout BC. Probably what we will be looking at for the short term is something more local until we can get our process and program stabilized, and then we'll probably be going for a much longer RFP to procure that space.
Thank you. Just by virtue of the work I do for the province, I'm aware that there's a considerable volume of additional server space or backup space available, what they call the Kamloops Data Center. And so I think there is an opportunity there, working either with the province or some of their vendors. I'm sure you're well aware, but that was kind of what piqued my interest, knowing that they're certainly interested in making that space available at a price. The other question I had, not at all related to that, is the recommendation in the report that has been moved does not include the police request. And I just want to confirm that that is what is being considered this evening, that that's going to be considered as part of a separate motion potentially.
Through the Mayor to Councilor Murdoch, no, as outlined in the report, the expectation is that this motion covers both the request that I've just described and the request from Police Services that was presented previously. So this is a package.
Apologies, I noticed that it wasn't included in what's been outlined here, but you did cover it in your opening remarks. So in that case, if it is included here, then I guess that's subject to our discussion now. So thank you for the clarification.
Any more questions? Any more discussion? I'll call the question on the recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the final item on the agenda. Parks and Recreation proposed fees and charges scheduled for 2016-2017.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fees and charges are reviewed each year by the Parks, Trails and Recreation Committee. Generally happens in November, and then flow through to presentation to council as budget, as part of the budget process. Generally, we look at, in terms of comparison, we're looking at the regional rates. We're looking at accessibility, and we identify any rates that we think could be introduced to help bring some revenue in, or anything that needs to be adjusted. One of the things that we're looking at this year is a family pass. We've heard that in the past. I think we may have tried it once or twice and had very, very minimal pickup on it, so had dropped it for a period. But we are hearing that that would be nice to have, so we're offering that again in the proposed rate package. We're looking at an administrative fee for some of the larger commercial park permits, so that when they come back and say, well, we need to change this date and that date, we're collecting a little bit of additional revenue to support the administrative costs of processing those changes. And then there's a number of other adjustments to some of the park rates, and they can be seen on page 14 of the agenda. Overall, we're looking at proposing a 1% increase, and that was recommended by the Parks, Trails and Recreation Committee. Certainly hoping that that minimizes the impact on most of the users of our services, and also avoids the need for any larger bump at some point down the road if we don't look at an increase this year. If approved, we estimate that would identify approximately $27,000 in additional revenue, assuming that the sales of passes and admissions don't change. There's a recommendation on page 8 of your agenda package for your consideration.
Councilor Durham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move approval of the fees as presented.
Second.
Councilor Brown, and then Councilor Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Doug. I'm curious about life passes. Do we have a handle on how many that are being given out? That would actually help me around affordability and issues around that.
Mm-hmm. Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we do track that. They have been on the increase. We track them both within the district and regionally, because recipients of the LIFE program, or participants in the LIFE program, can They may get it through us, but they can use it in any of the regional facilities. It has been increasing. It's not exponential by any stretch, but certainly there's more and more people that are identifying and qualifying for it, because there is a means test that goes along with it.
It might be something to have some sort of chart so that we can see it, because when we talk about affordability within the region, that is obviously a method for us to look at how people are accessing recreation. The other one I wanted to ask about was with respect to the over 90 passes. My mother loves them. My father's only 84, so he doesn't get it, but my mom does. So can you tell me how many that we have now?
It's, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's still available. I think we don't have many more than 3 or 4. The process is done by nomination, if you will. So if you have any 90-year-old friends and you would like them to have that pass, you put their name forward, and we go through the process of seeing whether they want it or not. So.
Okay, so it was at a few, like we were up, I thought, more than 2 or 3. I thought, again, for me, if you listen to all the debate about health and how we're living longer, it would be an interesting, I can understand why you wouldn't want to promote it because there's no fee. But I also understand from an age-friendly community's perspective, it's a benefit for those people over 90 to actually connect within the community. So I wouldn't mind those numbers, especially before I go to Regina.
Sure, certainly. And that's beginning of the month, right?
No, March 1st.
Yeah, okay.
Councilor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I forget, Doug, I think this is the last time we're going to get the benefit of presentations from you at the budget meetings, and I think we definitely got our money's worth out of you tonight. So I just want to say thank you very much. Well done, sir, on both your files and others.
Thank you.
My question is just related to the family pass. That's a new pass, a new item this year, I guess going into effect for the new, for April 1st.
Yes.
Do you have a sense, based on what happens in other jurisdictions, what effect that has in terms of adult passes, or what kind of effect it's going to have on the other passes that we offer, and then what kind of uptake we might expect on a family pass?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Murdoch, I think we have a number of situations where people don't end up buying passes because there wasn't a family one available. So in that sense, there may be no negative impact. There certainly are situations where there's families that either one parent has them or has a pass, and one of the children may. So we may see a bit of a drop. I don't have any particular stats on that, and Kellyanne, I'm not sure if you know specifically.
I know West Shore sold 20 family passes last year, and didn't have any impact on their adult passes.
Okay.
Hopefully it was about the same.
Well, I think certainly I can appreciate being in the position of having an annual pass and having one child with 10 times pass, and so it certainly would be a lot more convenient to just have the opportunity to do a family pass. And I can see a lot of residents wanting to take advantage of that. So I'd be very curious to see what the uptake looks like, and then what kind of impact that had. I'm hopeful we'll collect that kind of information to look at next year. So thank you very much. I think it's a great idea. I'm pleased to see that included here, and I'm pleased. I will be supporting the recommendation. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Haynes.
I'd like to share our appreciation of Doug's long service with Park and Recs and all the things that you've stewarded into place. Thank you. As you head off into the sunshine and sunset.
Don't send him off quite yet.
No, but he's prepping. He's prepping. Don't Doug, I wonder if you have any information around the initiative that was undertaken by Saanich on the free passes for Syrian refugees. Was that going forward? Have I misspoke? I thought I caught something like that. No.
Transit passes.
Transit passes, have I mixed this up?
Yeah.
Okay, I withdraw the question.
Through the mayor, I can just, we had I think a report that came from the CAO that summarized the activities that take place throughout the district. A lot of them through the Parks and Recreation Department, some through police. One of the additional items relating to life is that we do, and this had been in place prior to the Syrian situation, we do waive the means test in the first year for immigrant residences coming in, immigrant families coming in, and so that's certainly in place for the new arrivals.
So is that something we can pass information on to the groups that are working with our new residents?
They're aware of that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's what I think I heard that, that's what I was mixing up with, thank you.
Any more questions? I'll call the question on the recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? That carries unanimously. All right, that moves us through the agenda. Unless there are any other questions from council for staff or any issues you'd like to raise or debate amongst yourselves, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Move adjourned.
Moved and second. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? That carries unanimously. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff, for staying.
Yeah, thanks to the camera crew.